have one of your officers involved in the shooting at 18th Avenue in Jackson?
They're saying it's a Phoenix officer.
There's no suspect information. There's no vehicle information.
It's a twisted, unsolved mystery.
The information was really sketchy.
Yeah, my officer saying he's 10-7. I think he's saying he's dead. There is an officer down. They believe it might be a suicide.
An investigation filled with strange circumstances.
We have a suicide that is staged to be or made to look like a homicide.
80 weapons missing here.
A homicide that has been staged to be a suicide. Or we have a homicide that we can't figure out exactly why or how things ended up how they ended up.
An uncracked case.
We got a lot of units headed that way.
With few concrete clues.
I want this entire area locked down. I don't want anything to move out or in.
The crime scene is etched in my memory.
And the decorated police sergeant at the center of it all, Sean Drenth, left behind loved ones, waiting and wondering.
I miss them. I love them.
Until they figure out who did this, there's a cop killer out there. There's a killer out there.
What happened last October in the moments before Sean was shot to death with his own gun?
I lose hope every day, and I surely never thought we'd be here all this time later not knowing.
Who pulled the trigger?
Is it possible that you've already talked to the killer?
Thanks for joining us for this ABC 15 Investigators Special, Death on Duty, the Sean Drenth Mystery. I'm Katie Rammel.
And I'm Steve Irvin. Tonight we're going to take you inside the case of the Phoenix police sergeant who was killed on duty nearly 1 year ago. You'll see surveillance video of his patrol car just moments before the crime and the actual crime scene photographs from the spot where he was killed on duty.
The ABC 15 investigators reviewed hundreds of pieces of evidence and hours of audio tapes related to the case. It's clear there are important pieces of evidence still missing from the scene. And tonight, for the first time, you're going to learn about the two clues that killer may have left behind.
And we begin with Lori Jane Gliha revealing new details in the final hours and minutes before Sean's mysterious death.
A gentle breeze brings a bit of calmness and peace to this place. But a tragic mystery still lingers here.
Couldn't go there at first.
This is where Diane Drenth lost her only son.
It's just hard to believe that any of it's real.
And Colleen Drenth
I miss him. I love him.
lost her soulmate.
I wish he was here to help me through some of the things that I've had to deal with.
It's here where Sean Drenth was found dead. It's a tiny lot tucked behind a Department of Transportation building in downtown Phoenix. This is where officers would sometimes come to write police reports. On October 18th, 2010, just before 11 p.m., this is where another officer on his nightly patrol stumbled upon Sean's strangely parked patrol vehicle. Both front doors were open.
I got out and I screamed hello because I didn't want to startle the officer.
Sean had 12 years on the job and once earned a Medal of Valor for saving people from a burning building. He had just started a new position as sergeant in the South Mountain Precinct. Earlier that evening, he guided his squad through a police situation involving a man with a gun. Hours later, he was dead.
I started to approach to make sure that, he was alive and that he may have just passed out or something. I didn't even get past the front of the truck when I noticed the blood coming from what appeared to be the back of his head.
Shot in the head with his own shotgun.
My first impression, just looking at what I saw, I could see why the officers thought it was a suicide, because it looked like a suicide.
Homicide Detective Warren Brewer is the case agent in the death of Sean Drenth. Joe Knott is lead lieutenant.
Do you think this was a murder?
I don't know. It depends which day you ask me. And I think there is information to support either one.
The seasoned investigators have struggled for a year with the confusing clues left at the scene.
I can still see Sean lying there. I can still see his car over here. I can still see the different things laying on the ground.
Sean was a firearms instructor, and his colleagues say he was great at handling weapons. But at the scene, something completely uncharacteristic. 2 of his guns had been carelessly tossed on the ground.
The other gun
Was off in the gravel.
Someone had thrown or dropped Sean's police weapon over a chain link fence far from where his body lay.
I know they started searching clearly along the railroad tracks area, primarily because they figured, well, somebody would have left, they would have went over the fence perhaps.
And a gun Sean normally wore in his ankle holster was on the ground next to his body, a few yards away.
Right here.
Detectives found a clue from that gun. Someone fired a bullet.
So it hit that and then went all the way back and hit that other
Yeah, you can see the section of fence that's been repaired. They cut that out, and actually you can still see the hole.
More confusing clues dot the crime scene. Handcuffs, a cell phone, and a flashlight, all belonging to Sean, all on the ground near his body. And there was another complication.
There were lots of people there.
Yes.
Describe that.
Well, there were 50+ people in the scene.
The fact that the word suicide was mentioned and was already spreading, that this was an on-duty suicide versus a murder, I think we lost control.
Dozens of officers concerned for a fallen friend raced to the scene. They left footprints in the dirt lot and DNA.
We probably did lose some valuable pieces of evidence, but we can't dwell on that. We just got to go with what we have.
If this was a murder, could the killer have been blending in with the crowd the night Sean was killed?
Do you think some of your detectives have already spoken to the killer?
It's possible. You know how we don't know who the killer is.
Still ahead.
People from within the organization were calling and saying, hey, we heard that Sean was killed because of this investigation.
A possible motive for murder or something else?
Could that have been a motive for suicide? Could be.
And Sean's last call to his wife.
He called me around 10 o'clock that night. He's like, I'll probably be busy around 10:30. And
did he say what he was going to be doing at 10:30?
The plans he mentioned during their last phone call.
There are a ton of cameras in this area.
And for the first time, we'll show you images of Sean Drenth's patrol car captured on surveillance cameras in the moments before he died.
Welcome back to Death on Duty, the Sergeant Sean Drenth mystery. A decorated police sergeant excited about a new assignment and cracking jokes at every turn.
But just weeks after his sudden death, a bombshell raising new questions. Did someone have a reason to kill Sean? Was he depressed enough to take his own life? Lori Jane Gliha goes in depth with the twist that had everyone talking and what Sean's wife says about their relationship.
that's that expression of what?
This is when he was first born. We were in Tacoma.
He would write me little songs or buy a card, leave me notes. He made sure to call me every night before going to bed.
They were like two peas in a pod, Colleen and Sean Drenth, best friends from the beginning. He played guitar, and their love story played out like beautiful music.
The first time he ever talked to me was at a party. He came up and told me a joke, and I started laughing. Then somebody came up and took a photo of us right afterwards. He covered my eyes.
And I remember he brought me home a picture before I met her, and he said, I am in love with her. Look at her, she's so beautiful. I'm so in love.
Sean's mom, Diane, says he was smitten right from the start.
I never really understood soulmates until I saw Sean and Colleen.
Their high school romance blossomed into marriage. Every free moment they had, they shared together.
When do you miss him the most?
Every night. Those times when I would cuddle up to him. I'd fall asleep on his chest when he was home. And that's what I miss.
Colleen does her best to cope by coming here to the place where Sean died. She'll bring little reminders to help her remember. There's so much mystery that remains at this spot. Why was Sean in this area before he died? And was anybody with him? Colleen says their last phone conversation was pretty routine. Like most others, ended with laughter.
He called me around 10 o'clock that night. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'll probably be busy around 10:30. And he's like, I just wanted to make sure I said goodnight to you before you went to bed. And, you know, he was making jokes, his normal.
Did he say what he was going to be doing at 10:30?
He was meeting a friend to go and have some coffee.
Sean never made it to coffee with that friend. The police lieutenant he was supposed to meet got tied up with something else. Not long after that, Sean was gone. In the weeks following Sean's death, Detective Brewer and Lieutenant Knott were hot on another lead, Rumors were swirling about a different investigation.
People from within the organization were calling and saying, hey, we heard that Sean was killed because of this investigation.
Happening now, more than 20 Phoenix police officers under internal investigation, 3 of them indicted on felony charges for stealing.
A month after Sean died, a multi-year investigation into several Phoenix police officers, including Sean Drenth, reached a critical point. 3 officers and a former officer were indicted on felony charges. Investigators say Sean would have been indicted too for involvement in an off-duty security scheme.
Nobody did anything wrong. I mean, Sean was a rule follower.
Each officer accused of showing up late to an off-duty security job or leaving work early and getting paid for time he wasn't on the clock. For years, Sean knew he was a target. This is an audio recording from 2008.
It wasn't a set schedule.
He's being interviewed by an investigator looking into the allegations, and Sean insists he did nothing wrong.
Did you always work the scheduled shifts?
It was always the full deal. I mean, I know there is, because there's an internal investigation too, and I know a lot of the allegations there have to do with leaving early. But nobody I worked with, we never left early.
Did he make any indication to you that he knew something was going to happen, that there would be an indictment?
Oh yeah, there was rumors all the time. Nothing ever happened. I mean, those rumors have been going on for years.
Could that have been a motive for suicide? We don't even know that Sean knew what direction that investigation was going at that point.
How about that as a motive for murder?
Well, we looked at that from the beginning.
At the beginning, detectives called the Attorney General's case a catalyst and considered it a possible motive for Sean's death. They took DNA samples from dozens of officers connected to the off-duty work to rule out any possible link to the homicide investigation. And here's where things get even more interesting. One of the officers indicted in the off-duty work scheme, Aaron Lentz, was one of the first officers to arrive at the scene where Sean was found dead. Lentz told homicide detectives he and another officer had talked to Sean for half an hour not long before Sean died.
Did it complicate things, though, that Aaron Lentz was one of the first people at the scene and also was involved in the AG's investigation?
Well, it didn't complicate things really, but it's one of the things that we look at.
Detectives also spent lots of time asking questions about the man at the center of the off-duty security case, former cop George Contreras. He resigned from the department in 2008.
Did you have anything to do with Drenth's death?
There's nothing to say about Sergeant Drenth. It was a tragedy. It was a tragic incident. They were the best of friends. They played music together. That's all there is. It's what you guys know already. He had absolutely no involvement.
Contreras knew Sean from when they worked together at the police department. The two loved guitars and once played in a band together. And Sean had also stopped by the guitar shop Contreras owned days before he died.
I used to joke with him that he was going to put me out of business because he had more guitars in his house than I do here in the store.
When detectives questioned Contreras about Sean's death, he told investigators in this audio interview he believed Sean was murdered.
To me, the only thing that makes sense is this was a hit. It has to be a hit from, I don't know what freaking organization in Mexico or for what purpose. Retaliation for some freaking border issue, I don't know. But that has to be what it is. Because Sean didn't have any enemies that I knew.
Contreras appeared on television talking about his close relationship with Sean after he died. Colleen says it made her feel a little uncomfortable since the two weren't best friends.
Were they friends?
Yeah, one time, yeah, they were friends when George was on the department.
So as far as you knew, they were on good terms?
Yeah, they were, yeah. As far as I know, they were on good terms.
Good enough terms that Contreras admitted to homicide detectives that he touched the gun from Sean's ankle holster just days before Sean died.
He had his leg crossed. I said, dude, let me check out your gun. So took it out, and I was holding it, telling him I wanted to get one like this.
How does George Contreras fit into this investigation?
At this point, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Investigators say none of the men involved in the Attorney General's investigation are suspects in Drenth's case, and they have no evidence proving the Attorney General's investigation has any connection to the death of Sean Drenth.
We've known about the investigation for years. For it to come out at that time was just bad timing.
A judge eventually threw out the initial indictments against the men and sent the case back to a grand jury to review. Still ahead.
What we need to figure out, we need to answer that question. Where did this come from?
2 important clues left at the scene. Why a shoe print may be the key to finding the killer, and the significant piece of evidence that's missing.
We have no idea where it went or what happened to it.
Plus,
was there gunpowder on his hand?
Can a simple test for gunshot residue clear up who fired the weapons left at the scene? And
we know where he was at, we know what he was doing.
The first look at surveillance video and the other people captured on camera so close to Sean, so close to the time he died.
Welcome back to Death on Duty, the Sergeant Sean Drenth mystery. Hundreds of pieces of evidence, dozens of DNA samples, including one from former public safety manager Jack Harris. And still, no solid leads.
Until detectives found 2 critical items left at the scene. Will they provide the break detectives need to crack the case? Here again, Ms. Lori Jane Gliha.
I've been back numerous times. It's very vivid.
Sometimes he visits this spot alone.
Walking around looking at everything, taking a mental note of what I remember.
Veteran homicide detective Warren Brewer looks for missed clues and plays out scenarios in his head. How did Sean Drenth live his last moments in this dusty lot? It's not just any case for Detective Brewer. Sean was someone he knew.
Sean was a good officer. And we're human, we have emotions, and it's important that you don't let the emotions distract you from the investigation, because the integrity of the investigation is the #1 goal here.
Detectives now have hundreds of fingerprints and DNA samples on file. They also collected cash, a paper receipt, even used paintballs from the scene, hoping something would provide answers. They know Sean was killed with his own shotgun, but they never found the bullet that killed him.
They spent several hours working a grid-type search to try to locate it, and were never able to find it.
Detectives did find a few crucial clues in that secluded lot. A shoe print. It doesn't seem to match anyone known to have stood within the crime scene.
That's one of the unanswered questions. Well, what are these other shoe prints from? Can we not identify them because they're not of great quality? Based on evidence that we have at the scene, somebody was there that we haven't yet identified.
And you can't describe what that is?
Can't describe what it is, where it is, why it is, how it got there. But it's strong information for us to say, well, we need to figure out, we need to answer that question. Where did this come from?
Lieutenant Knott says detectives collected DNA in a critical crime scene area. And after testing hundreds of samples from other people who had contact with Sean, this DNA is unique.
Do you have DNA that is not matched to anybody?
Correct.
He won't say whether it's blood evidence, fingerprints, or something else, just that someone else was at the scene around the time Sean died.
I mean, this was just a challenging scene, not just from the standpoint of what we found here, but with no witnesses. You know, we're just, okay, let's take a look at everything.
But what if there was a witness, a camera capturing the last seconds of Sean's life?
There are a ton of cameras in this area.
Hours of surveillance video from cameras on surrounding buildings show small glimpses of Sean's final patrol through Phoenix. Here, about an hour before his body was found, you can see the headlights from his cruiser shining in an area close to the spot where he died. This view shows a train passing right by the eventual crime scene at around 10:27 p.m. But was Sean still alive?
There's nothing to give us a good camera view of the area coming into and out of this particular, triangle area.
This is the last known surveillance video of Sean driving through a parking lot around 10:25 p.m. The evidence shows Sean was alive around 10:26 p.m. when his vehicle pulled into the lot where he was ultimately found. About 10 minutes later, at 10:35, this video shows a Capitol Police vehicle patrolling a different lot just yards from where Sean's body was discovered. Not long after that, tiny lights in the distance. It's the officer who found Sean's body driving into the lot where Sean was. Moments later, a sea of red and blue, Sean's friends and fellow officers rushing to the scene. If only the cameras were closer.
Is there anything he could have done to ask for help?
Sure. If this is one of the things that's puzzling from a police officer standpoint. Was he meeting somebody that he knew? Was he unaware that there was somebody else in the lot? We don't know.
Do you think someone he knew killed him?
I don't know. I don't know.
Investigators have followed a variety of leads, traveling throughout the state into California and Florida. They even brought in outside help from expert investigators. They won't say whether Sean had any gunshot residue on his hand, but they did find some slight scrapes on his knuckles and debris on his uniform. What they need now is a solid tip leading them to the truth.
Are you going to solve this case?
I would hope to, but to be honest with you, it could stay like this because there's little to go on.
Do you feel confident that this could be solved?
I think there's a strong possibility it'll remain unsolved.
The bottom line is until they figure out who did this, there's a cop killer out there. There's a cop killer out there. And I know that we don't want any of the people that we've become close to over this time to go through anything like we've had to go through.
What's the most important thing for people to know?
Who Sean is. I mean, he's funny. He has a great personality. Loving. Once you were his friend, he loved you and took care of you. He would do anything for you.
And that we lost a really good person. We lost a really good man.
Still ahead.
We want it solved.
Find whoever killed him.
The bottom line is Sean did not take his own life.
You be the detective. How you can explore the crime scene from your computer and share your own theories.
Give us that tip to help us to find out what the truth is.
Plus the reward still being offered for clues leading to an arrest in Sean's death. Welcome back to Death on Duty, the Sergeant Sean Drenth mystery. October 18th, 2011 is the one-year anniversary of Sean's death. His family is trying to focus on the fun times they shared with him, hopeful for some sort of resolution in Sean's case.
What do you think he'd be telling you?
To find a way to have fun and to be happy. To relax. Yeah, his concern, he always wanted me to be happy.
Police are asking anyone with information about the death to come forward. Silent Witness is also offering up to a $10,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
Right now, something we want you to experience. You can visit the crime scene yourself and learn more about the Drenth case in a special interactive website we've designed. Go to abc15.com/investigators and look for the special Sean Drenth web page. You'll be able to click on photos, watch videos, and listen to interviews about the investigation, about Sean, his family, and his career.
You can also walk through the crime scene step by step, clicking on these evidence markers to learn more about the items police collected. We even have police interviews with witnesses and friends and family members. Make sure you leave your comments there as well.
And if you have a story you'd like the ABC 15 investigators to check out, send us an email. The address, investigators@abc15.com. Thanks for joining us tonight for this ABC 15 Investigators Special. I'm Steve Irvin.
For Lori Jane Gliha and the ABC 15 investigators, I'm Katie Rammel. Have a good night.